It's another edition of the Wrap-Up Show with John Schaefer and Jim Russell. We're presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance. Before we get going, we've got exclusive year-round Padres content for you. If you're a Padres fan, you'll want to subscribe by hitting the button down below. You see Jim over there. There's a button. There's a notification bell. If you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when we post new videos. If you like our content, hit the thumbs up. And also follow us on Twitter as well, at John Schaefer, at Jim Russell SD. Really interesting report out of The Athletic related to Eric Hosmer we'll get to in a moment. But first, we want to tell you about our title sponsor. We want to thank Mark Nimitz for his support of the Wrap-Up Show. If you like this channel and you have insurance needs, we ask you consider going with Mark Nimitz. His link is down below. If you're shopping for auto, home, renters, or life insurance in San Diego, you got to consider a San Diegan who's a big Padres fan. Mark Nimitz, he's at Farmers Insurance. If you've got an electric vehicle, he's lowered his rates on select electric vehicle models. He's got over a decade of experience, wonderful customer service and communication. So again, if you're a Wrap-Up Show supporter, click the link down below in the description. You'll get to Mark's website. He can help you and your family with your insurance needs.
And as always, all his information is above my head. Phone number and email address, mnimitz@farmersagent.com. That's mnimitz@farmersagent.com. And John, before we get into Eric Hosmer here, I want to give a little shout out to the San Diego Padres fan club Facebook page. They're doing a special giveaway right now. It's for a watercolor Fernando Tatis Jr. poster, like a 20x14 poster. It's really cool. I'm gonna bring it up right now. Here we go. Okay, so here's the poster. It's a 20x14.
Sweet.
And Daniel, who is the administrator of this Facebook page, reached out to me and said that if you follow the page, which has over 20,000 Padres fans on Facebook, you are automatically entered to win this 20x14 watercolor Fernando Tatis Jr. poster. So if you haven't already, go right now to the San Diego Padres fan club Facebook page. It's like a group on Facebook.
Yeah.
Hit the join button or the subscribe button there, and you're automatically entered to win this pretty cool watercolor Fernando Tatis Jr. poster.
Yeah, love that Facebook group. That's an awesome item. Make sure to subscribe to that group and subscribe here as well. So the report, Jim, out of The Athletic, I think is a pretty interesting one about Eric Hosmer. It says that the Padres and Cubs were in talks last summer about a trade that would have sent Eric Hosmer and a quote-unquote highly regarded prospect to the Cubs. This from The Athletic. Now, the return on the Cubs end wasn't mentioned to San Diego. But, we had heard a little bit about this, right, over the course of the summer. I don't know if we ever got it official, but the idea that the Padres were as close to moving Eric Hosmer as they were considering moving one of their top prospects as well to the Cubs might get you inside the mind of A.J. Preller at the end of this lockout as well. Because if they were willing to do it last July, would they be willing to do it again come 2022 before the season to potentially move Hosmer and attach a prospect to him?
My thinking on this is, okay, if the Cubs were interested in Eric Hosmer, why wasn't that done? Like, why wasn't that pushed forward more? Why wasn't that pursued more? It kind of feels like after reading this report, you're like, the Cubs reached out to the Padres about Eric Hosmer? And if that's the case, why didn't the Padres look further into this? Because we all know, like, look, Preller wants to get rid of Hosmer very bad. He was almost going to do it last year at the deadline to Texas. I think, over half the contract, Robert Hassel or another top prospect for Joey Gallo. Now, there was no, I feel like Joey Gallo player from the Cubs that would have come back to the Padres. Maybe Wilson Contreras, the catcher. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, or Anthony Rizzo.
But I think Anthony Rizzo was traded to the Yankees at that moment, wasn't he?
Well, maybe, but I feel like they were having conversations at the deadline. I mean, I feel like maybe maybe Rizzo was being entertained, but who knows? What was the bulking point on the Padres side? Was it on the Cubs side?
Yeah.
Was it over dollars? Was it over dollars and cents? How much were they going to eat of the Hosmer deal?
Yeah, I don't think we'll really know that. But if the Padres got a call from the Cubs and then they were like, yeah, we don't want to do it, I don't understand that. Like, if that happened, then what's the deal here? you wanted to trade Hosmer to Texas, but then you don't want to trade him to the Cubs. Like, you want to get rid of this contract. Now, maybe that could have been because the Cubs didn't want to eat a bunch of Eric Hosmer's money. And that's understandable. And that's also maybe a reason why Preller and the Padres would have said, yeah, no, we're not doing that. But if the Cubs were willing to kind of go where the Rangers were going to go as far as the money eating of this whole trade, I don't understand like why that didn't happen. And to your point, once this lockout ends, seeing this report, maybe there is a kind of market for Eric Hosmer. Maybe not be a lot of teams, but you could probably put the Cubs down as a team that would entertain taking Eric Hosmer because they lost a lot of leadership. They lost a lot of players last year at the deadline. They pretty much gutted the entire 2016 World Series
Yep.
core. And you need, honestly, as much as people like balk at the whole thing of Eric Hosmer and his leadership, blah, 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 blah. Well, for a young team, the management might view Eric Hosmer as a guy to like bridge the gap and to come in and be a leader for young guys. Cause we've heard from Fernando Tatis Jr. this year how much Eric Hosmer was a factor when he came up in the big leagues a couple of years ago, and how all the young players kind of gravitate to Eric Hosmer. Whether we view that as a good thing or not, that's just that's just what happens. And when we talked to Skip Schumacher, he said the exact same thing: is that you know who the leader in that clubhouse is by seeing who people gravitate to, and by the sound of it, a lot of young players gravitate towards Eric Hosmer.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're the Padres and you didn't move Hosmer last July, are you going to move him in 2022? Like, you've already been beat by the Hosmer deal, right? I mean, the Hosmer deal was an awful one, $144 million over 8 years. Do you want to let the Hosmer deal beat you twice and attach a high-level prospect to his contract? Like, if the only way you're moving him is by attaching Luis Campusano or Robert Hassel or Mackenzie Gore or CJ Abrams, and you're probably not attaching Abrams or Hassel, but even if it's Gore or Campusano, like, do you really want to give up a player to shed salary when it's not even going to be all of the salary? Or would you rather just eat the contract at some point? Maybe it's after 2022 when he's then owed $39 million, but keep the prospect. I guess the question is, what is the prospect worth and what is the return? But it's like, you've already done damage by signing this deal. Imagine if you trade Hosmer and include Luis Campusano and he's a 4-time All-Star on the other side of it. Or you trade Mackenzie Gore and he's a top 5 Cy Young vote getter 3 times in the next 6 years. Like, there's a significant risk there where I feel as if you've already signed a bad deal. You're already going to pay a portion of that, even if you move him. Maybe you just cut ties. And if it's not in 2022, maybe it's in 2023. Like, what's the lesser of two evils? Eating all of the money or attaching a player that could burn you on the other side of it?
No, I think the attaching a player is what is probably holding back Preller here. Like, I think he was willing to do it at the trade deadline with Texas because he was going to get Joey Gallo back. He was going to be here for a couple years. But the attaching the prospect thing, I think AJ Preller looks at it like, okay, I don't really want to do this. But again, I might not have a choice because I put myself in this mess. And this is something that I have to get out from underneath of. Like, it just, every time we talk about Eric Hosmer, you just feel the weight of that contract and the lack of production and just the problems that he's causing, not off the field, but just in that lineup. He's not doing what he was brought here to do offensively at all. And it's not even close to what we all thought Eric Hosmer could do once he got here. Now, there were, people that that looked at that deal, rightfully so, as a horrible contract at the time. Every day that passes, it becomes worse and
Gets
worse.
worse.
But attaching the top prospect to get rid of Eric Hosmer, that I think is the toughest part of this for AJ Preller. I don't think it's the money, to be honest. I really don't. Because if it was the money, then he would have been cut already. Right? Like, that's the thing. But I also don't think Preller wants to just cut Eric Hosmer without getting maybe something in return.
The reason I think the money is a portion of it, but I'm with you, not all of it, would be because of where they are with the luxury tax. So as they push up against it, and if they went over it, there's going to be significant penalties if they try to sign a player that rejected a qualifying offer. So if they went over the luxury tax threshold, which nobody knows, by the way, it hasn't fully been reported as of yet. I don't know if it comes out during the lockout or at the end of the lockout.
Probably never
But
know.
I think we'll know because essentially, if they did go over, they can't sign a player that rejected a qualifying offer like Nick Castellanos unless they give up two 2022 picks, their second pick and their
Ugh.
fifth pick. And you know how they treat those things. So you're going
Yeah.
to give up two top 5 picks to also then spend $125 million plus on Nick Castellanos and burst through the luxury tax where there's already a 20% tax once you get over it. Now, that might look different. Now, the new CBA might actually allow the Padres to make some of these moves without losing draft picks or without paying additional tax fees if that luxury tax number goes up. We don't know that. But that's why I would say, at least from where I sit, well, I'm with you. Peter Seidler's invested. I think the Padres are committed to investing. The problem is if they don't shed payroll, they're putting themselves in a position where competitively it's going to be a challenge because they're giving up draft picks, they're spending taxes by bursting through the luxury tax threshold. So I don't know what it looks like on the other side of the CBA. And I'm with you. I think ultimately they'll eat a portion of the salary, but I don't know if they want to eat all of it because it's going to sit on that luxury tax number for the next 4 years if they just cut them, for example, and then have to, eat the $59 million.
We've talked about this so much. It's just I just can't get over the fact that they actually gave him a 7-year, $144 million deal. I
I
just
think it was
can't
8
get over
years.
the fact that
How about
that
8
was the
years?
contract they gave to Eric freaking Hosmer.
Well, they gave him
Of
8
all
years.
people. 8 years. Sorry. 8 years, $144 million.
It
I
would have been
mean,
a good, 2-year, $10 million deal.
it was just I just like I understand when they signed him. Like I linking it back to remember when the Nationals they signed Jason Worth to
Of
like that
course.
massive
Yeah.
contract. And when they signed Eric Hosmer, I kind of viewed that deal as like the Jason Worth deal, like the
Mhm.
start of what could come. And obviously Manny came, and then you had Tatis, and then you made all those trades and Darvish and Snell and Musgrove, and you signed, Ha-Seong Kim, even though that deal doesn't look great. Trade for Grisham, and you make all these moves, but the beginning of it was Eric Hosmer, and I thought that he could have done something to help this team win, and it's been a absolute failure. And the more we talk about it, the more frustrated I get because it's weighing this team down in more ways than one, not just on the field, but financially, roster construction, flexibility, trades, all of it is because of Eric Hosmer.
And think about this as well. As bad as the deal was, and it's among the worst deals that's been signed in the last decade in baseball. It's not. I don't know if it's Chris Davis bad, but it's a bad deal. And there's been some other, pitching deals that have been awful. Obviously, the Bumgarner deal for Arizona has been horrific. But
Horrible.
consider this. I mean, consider this. Hosmer, when they signed that deal, not only was it 8 years, 144, they gave him a 10-team no trade agreement.
And it
He can
changes every
tr
year, right?
and he can change him whenever he wants at the end of a year. So, if he knows that the Cubs are hot on him, he can put the Cubs on that list. If the Rangers had interest, he can put the Rangers on that list. Not to mention he becomes a 10-5 guy. 10 years of big league service, 5 years with
After
one
next
team at the
year.
conclusion of 2022. They're not going, let's be honest, and we've said this a lot. We're not selling false hope. We're not saying, oh, Eric Hosmer's on the move. He's 100%
No.
definitively moving when this lockout ends. This was always going to be a challenge, Jim. It's honestly one of the more difficult puzzles you can possibly put together from a GM's chair. How do you move him? How much money do you eat? What player do you attach to him? And what do you get back? Knowing that you're going to be judged for years and years in advance based on this move. And you've already been judged based on signing this awful deal. So it's a tricky putt, and that's underselling it. And I don't know if it happens. And if it doesn't happen, I personally believe what might be just as likely, if not more likely, is that they eventually do designate him after 2022. and they take the remaining $39 million, which is a lot, but it's not $59 million, and the dollars go down to $13 million a year, and they cut their losses at that point. I find that at least equally as feasible or possible as trading him. And again, the big unknown, you're really going to attach Robert Hassel or Mackenzie Gore to a guy that you overpaid just to get rid of him?
Right. No, that's a good point. And Preller said this at the GM meetings. I think he said this to kind of save himself from whatever could happen, and that was, we view Eric Hosmer as a part of the championship run here. I don't know if remember the exact wording,
Yep.
but it was along those lines of like, we view Eric Hosmer as a big piece of this team moving forward to potentially win a championship. Does he believe that? I highly doubt it. But you also are going to go into next year probably with Eric Hosmer on this team. And if you came out of the GM meetings and said, yeah, we're trying to get rid of him, but this lockout's going to be a struggle for us because this is not just an easy contract to move, well, then you lost Hosmer. You lost probably a bunch of other people in that clubhouse. It's going to be a weird dynamic going into next season, knowing that you're openly viewed as a guy they want to trade. If it's behind closed doors and it's face to face, and if Preller goes up to Hosmer and is like, "Look, we're trying to we want to keep you here, but it's just not working. But I'm never going to say that in the public." That's fine. But saying it in the public, we view Eric Hosmer as a guy who's going to be here. Then don't be surprised if he's here next year
He's here.
and he's your starting first baseman on opening day.
Here's the question for the chat, and you can reply down below, and we'll make sure to interact with you once this video is posted. Would you trade a top 4 prospect for Eric Hosmer? Would you attach a top 4 prospect to rid yourself of some of the salary? Shoot, would you do it for a top 10 prospect? Reply in the chat down below. Again, if you're new here, if you're a Padres fan, we're here all year long. This is the only exclusive year-round Padres channel on YouTube. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified when we have new videos. Like this video as well if you like this comment by hitting the thumbs up button. And follow us on Twitter at John Schaefer, at Jim Russell SD. And until next time, this has been the Wrap-Up Show presented by Mark Nimitz at Farmers Insurance.